Cool.
Awesome. So Spencer is an active syndicator, real estate investor, and executive leader for 2 real estate businesses. His own company, Madison Investing, has co-syndicated deals totaling 2,600 units for more than $141 million. Madison Investing helps busy professionals build passive income by helping them invest directly in commercial real estate projects like multifamily, self-storage, and mobile home parks. Spencer, welcome to the Multifamily Investor Nation Summit.
Thank you so much, Dan. This is a great event. And it's pretty remarkable how many people you pulled together for this awesome thing. So I couldn't be more excited to be here.
Well, I know we're all looking forward to hearing from you. So I'm going to stop and shut up and let you go ahead and take it over from here.
Awesome. Sounds good. Hey, investors, thanks so much for dialing in for this session. This is a topic that is very, very important to me. So as Dan already mentioned, you got a quick bio about me. So that's not really what I want to focus on here. In a moment, I will go through a little bit more about my background, but let's just dive right into it. Let's talk about why personal growth actually matters to you as a real estate investor. So why does it matter? You know, the legendary Jim Rohn, if you've ever read anything about Jim, he was big on this topic that income really seldom exceeds personal development. So the time that you invest as a real estate investor into your own knowledge, your skills, your network, all of that translates to your trajectory as a real estate professional and an investor. So as you proceed throughout your career, you know, you're going to just wrestle with this question: when does that income that you're developing that's tied to your personal development matter? Like, why are you really doing this? Why are you committing so many hundreds and hundreds of hours to grow your network, to develop your skill set, to underwrite all those deals, to read book after book, to listen to endless podcasts? Why does that stuff matter? Well, it's because we all have a finite amount of time on this earth. It starts off really fun. Oftentimes we get to just kind of hang out with our families, hang out with our friends for that first chunk of life through the teenage years. But then we quickly get into this working years period, which is the longest one for most of us. I still work a W-2 job. I'm an executive at a tech real estate company. So we're trading our time for money. And that period of life is a time when we actually probably have preferences on where we would rather be investing our very valuable time. So how do we want to use that time and use that money that we're talking about building through real estate investing and help it enhance our life and to build a lifestyle that we want? Well, we want to set it up so that this timetable right here, with the golden years being at the end, is actually pulling forward. We want to make sure that we're actually setting ourselves up in such a way where we can actually devote more to our children, to our family, to our pursuits, to our passions, to giving back, all these wonderful things. So we're going to go more into that in detail in a moment. What I also want to just tackle head on is this topic of what is personal development and what is it not? If you had asked me 10 years ago, hey, you're going to be giving a talk, Spence, on personal development, I probably would have laughed at you because it's just a crazy idea to most people out there. Most people we are taught to think of self-help, and that is what we typically think of when we hear the phrase personal development. It's stigmatized. So you walk into the library, you see this section, you tell a friend about it, you tell family members about it, and they have a pretty clear perspective on what it actually means. But here's what it is not. It is not self-help. It is not a hobby. You don't collect stamps. And if you do, this is not going to rip on the stamp collectors out there. You're not sitting there collecting coins. You're not sitting there actually crocheting. I know some pretty darn good crocheters, but all of these things are passions and hobbies. Self-development and personal development is not bird watching. It is absolutely a critical part of how you achieve success. I love playing video games. I really wish I still had time to do it. I barely ever do. Sometimes my son likes to play that. Maybe I'll jump on board playing with him. Again, that's just a hobby. So as you think about how you go and achieve success, and as you go throughout these many different events that you're attending here with Dan and Danny and Brandon, this event is a great example of what true self-development can mean. It doesn't mean putting time into something that's just fun. You're doing it and hopefully it's deeply satisfying. I find this stuff pretty fun, but you find it fulfilling and satisfying to challenge yourself and move forward in service of building your business. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're actually going to get really specific as to how you're going to go and pull that off. Oftentimes people write off self-development because they simply don't understand it. They don't understand that you need help navigating a very confusing landscape of entrepreneurship. Sometimes, a day might start. Maybe it's a rougher day for you. You wake up in the morning, you feel like you've had some good momentum recently, but you're starting to lose steam as an entrepreneur, as a small business professional. And you're like, well, I don't really know where to go next. And so you have to sit there and go back to basics. You have to really think about, where do I go to plot my next move? How do I chart a course to success? That's where I feel like events like this summit, as well as just personal development in general, can actually really help. It can step in, bring clarity to what you're trying to achieve, so that the next step you're going to be taking is directly in line with forward momentum, building your business, achieving the next level. And so as we go through these various stages and tools and techniques we're going to be walking through, what I would just challenge you to remember is just to ignore the noise. Ignore the noise that's out there when people might say, why'd you read a real estate book? Like, why are you going to that conference? Don't you have a job? Or, that podcast you sent me was weird. I don't understand why you like those things. It's noise. That's all it is. It's just noise. It's feedback. Always welcome to hear it, but it's just noise. And so let's start getting into it a bit more. I do think you have a choice as to where you could spend your time right now. So why should you listen to me? Here's some more about me, just in a little bit of detail. I co-founded Madison Investing. We help passive real estate investors achieve financial independence, and you can get involved with commercial real estate syndications. Actually, I'm happy to report we've even updated our stats further since the stats that I provided Dan earlier. So we've now done 3,211 units worth of partner deals and 328 million bucks in transactions, primarily focused on multifamily and self-storage. I do all this in conjunction with also being an executive at Lending Home, which is the largest fix and flip lender in the country. I helped build their origination team, and I personally oversaw the $3 billion in transactions. And right now we're doing about 500 loans per month. So definitely all real estate all the time. I currently lead their professional development group. That is why I am so passionate about this work. I get to think about it every day. So I don't necessarily do formal coaching or paid coaching programs myself. I've thought about it, but this is really fun to sit here and work with you guys on this topic. I do contribute in Forbes, do the occasional article for the Forbes Real Estate Council. I currently, on a personal note, live in Alameda, which is this awesome island city directly across from San Francisco and right next to Oakland in the Bay Area, California, with my co-founder Jennifer and our two boys. And just the bottom line I would give here is that my biggest focus, if I had to pick one over the past 13 years of my corporate life, is that I've been building relationships, but building people and challenging and mentoring people. These are individuals who are operations professionals, sales professionals, directors, every level you can imagine. And my biggest fulfillment has been watching them thrive and watching them take the next step. So that's a little bit more about me and why I think this is there's a lot of other great sessions, but why this is the best session you could be in right now. So what does it actually mean to do something like a business? When you say personal growth like a business, let's go into the agenda. So we're going to talk about goal setting. How do you actually put frameworks in place for your work and your life? Because they got to be integrated. Forecasting. Think of forecasting in this regard as specifically tied to milestones for your professional development. It's not forecasting like a financial forecast. Remember, you're going to hear me lace business language applied to personal development. So this is not a financial forecast. This is a personal development milestone forecast. Budgeting. Yes, we're not talking about pinching pennies. We're talking about going in more detail, actually pulling up a calendar and doing a couple scenarios as to how you budget your effort and how you budget your time. That's how you make sure that you deliver on the outcomes that you are actually committing to in the forecasting exercise. Hiring. Hiring in this context means you're gonna go and find a coach. Maybe it's not a paid coach. Maybe it's not even a real estate coach. Maybe it's a business coach. Maybe it's a relationship that you've established previously, but hiring in this context means a coach that it will actually help you achieve the next level in your personal development. And then reporting to the board. What this means in this context is, if you are working for a established company, you typically have a board of directors that you actually have to go provide readouts to on a regular basis, and they hold you very accountable. They expect to hear that you are delivering on the business outcomes that you guys all agreed upon. You need your board, your version of a board. You need a person in your life or people in your life who can sit there across the table from you and say, a quarter ago, you committed to do that. What happened? Or they say, high five, I can't believe you pulled that off. That's amazing. So what's the next step that you're going to go and take on? That's the dynamic that we're looking for on that fifth point, is accountability. So the reason I think this is helpful, and the reason why it's been helpful for me as we've built our business from scratch over the past few years, is that applying business language to stuff that is typically considered squishy and soft, like professional development, is something that actually makes you more disciplined, more focused, and you get a lot more out of it. Take yourself more seriously. And that is the difference between you thinking of this as a hobby and you actually thinking of this as something that's going to fundamentally overhaul your trajectory as a business professional. So if you guys are ready to rock at the starting line, let's get going. Get your notepads out. So let's do some goal setting. We're talking about goal setting for life and for work. Goals are deeply important. And this isn't just goal setting like saying, hey, I want to go and be a rock star. Yeah, that might be true. How do we get more specific? So let's just start first with what are some examples of goals. A couple of these I pulled from my own life, but I tried to keep them generic enough where they'd resonate. After networking with hundreds and hundreds of real estate investors out there, there are so many on here of these goals that apply almost universally. So you have to find something on here. If you're listening to this right now, you have to find something on here that likely resonates with you. Maybe you want to quit your job. Maybe you want to get more fit and run a marathon. Maybe you want to live abroad, either part-time or full-time, and do it in perpetuity. Maybe you just want to be an expat. I'd say for me, personal passion point would be, I would love to be a present parent. I've been working in a very intense corporate environment for more than a decade. I think being a great dad is something that drives me, and I can do that sometimes. I would like to be able to do that every day. And so that's just 2 cents about me. But you also got some fun ones on here. Nothing wrong with people who want to go buy a jet. If that's what you want to do, you, absolutely fine. But there's some things missing from these goals. I like the goals, but they're not quite there yet. So the question to you would be, what's missing? Here's what's missing. This is not a revolutionary concept. Actually, I would argue this has now become table stakes in the realm of professional development. So this is just our teaser. Think of it that way. A SMART goal is something that you can actually pin down to a specific date. It is something that you can actually think of as measurable. And so that's why that SMART framework of specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely is so critical when you're setting a good goal. And that could be a big goal, or that can be just a weekly or daily goal. It could be an hourly goal. But just try to make it SMART with that acronym. And we're going to do a couple examples of what that actually means. So take quitting my job. Just saying quit my job, probably not going to drive a lot of results. It's too simple. It doesn't have a time. It's not measurable. So let's make it measurable. I want to quit my job by January 1st, 2021 and run my business. Just as a disclaimer, these are theoretical goals. So if anyone watching from my current day job watches this and they're like, what? So yeah, these are theoretical. So here's another one. I want to live abroad. Okay, cool. Me too. What do you mean by that? Well, what I mean is I actually want to move to Spain with my family. And I want to do that when my kids are old enough to make it something where we're not pulling our hair out and it's a little bit too dicey. Cool, that's a goal. This one is going to be very popular, I would imagine, on the multifamily summit. I want to own 1,000 doors. Cool, 1,000 units. Well, by when? And what kind of doors? Do you want to own a multifamily portfolio? Do you want to own by a certain timeline? Okay, cool. Now we've got a timeline. So you get the picture. It's not hard to make a goal a SMART goal, but it is absolutely the difference between that goal being relevant or completely irrelevant and nascent. So take the time. It really only takes 5 to 10 minutes. But if you find yourself struggling to do it, don't jump into action. Just take your time. It's the most important first step you could be taking. As you go and you try to navigate all those options that are out there, now we're going to go and figure out what do you do to drill down on that goal and make it something real. And in order to do that, we got to take a step back. So let's take that step back and talk about, hey, we're not going to set a goal on this summit here today that is completely unrelated to real estate. We're here because of multifamily. And so we have to take a moment and just clarify specifically, what does it mean to set a niche and a strategy focus within real estate specifically? And so let's clarify that focus. So this overview goes into residential, commercial property types. It doesn't attempt to be exhaustive. You're not going to see some of the more niche things on here. You're not going to see raw land. You're not going to see marinas. You're not going to see student housing. But you see a lot of the main fare stuff that many of us have focused on in our own portfolios or are aspiring to. And so maybe you are focused on single family homes. Maybe you've been focused on it and you're realizing the economies of scale are not as compelling necessarily as focusing on multifamily. So you start looking up, you start looking at quads, you start looking at duplexes. Definitely still have one of the duplexes in our portfolio. It cash flows. I always wish it cash flowed more. I always wish I didn't have to make so many phone calls with our property manager to manage the manager. And that's why at some point we will 1031 that thing into an apartment. But maybe you're still there and that's absolutely fine because at least you took the step to get there. But what if you want to focus on commercial property? What if it's multifamily? And within the realm of multifamily, if you're going to go and set a goal to acquire, then you're going to have to get really specific. There's so many individual steps that are taken between, hey, I want to go do it, and I want to do it by a certain date, and I want to go do it in a certain asset type, to actually making that happen, to put in that first offer and to get that first property. So your goal that you set is going to inform your niche and strategy decisions. Your niche and your strategy decisions are absolutely going to inform your personal development milestones. And your personal development milestones that you forecast are going to get really specific on today's talk, where we get into budgeting your time and budgeting your effort. And also, if you decide that you want to hire a coach, and what type of coach that you should hire, and what do you want them to focus on with you. So let's go into forecasting. This is section 2. This is when we get really specific. Just as a reminder, if you're jumping in now to this particular call, we're not talking about forecasting like a spreadsheet with financials. This is not a pro forma. This is a forecasting exercise for your specific personal development milestones and tying those to a timeline. I got to tell you, one of the most fascinating things I've learned about working with folks and coaching them over the past 13 years, even the most top performers you can imagine, is, man, we are stubborn. We are so set in our ways, some more than others, myself included. I will say, you got to be open-minded to changing your habits, because you might not have some good ones. If you're sitting on this call, you're clearly already building stuff that is productive. You're building good habits. The hard part is actually making them systematized. So as you look at these ridiculous looking Lego figures, which are talking to each other somehow, you can appreciate the humor. That little guy right there is trying to offer a wheel to a guy trying to push a cart on some blocks. He clearly has a better way, but they don't want to hear it. So are you willing to hear it? That's my question today. So think about it. You want to go out and you want to take on this, what seems like a massive, massive goal. And that's you, sweating it out, bottom of the hill. You got a lot of work to do. You want to get to 1,000 units. That sounds like a really awesome goal. What are you going to do about it? Well, I don't know. You haven't taken the step to go and plan. You haven't forecasted milestones that get you to that goal. So let's start thinking about it. What happens? What if you just start running? What if you just start doing things? You just start meeting with people, you network like crazy. You go to meetups, you get on the podcast circuit and you devour podcasts like I did for a year, solid 400 podcasts or so. What if you go read every book and you just start doing things. Are you going to get what you want? You might, but I'd say that that's more a function of just raw output. You're definitely working hard. I'm not sure how smart you're working. So it's going to feel a lot like this. You're just humming along. You are sprinting and you're not really climbing. Instead, here's what I'd recommend you do. I want you to start thinking of scaffolding your learning. I want you to actually go and build these scaffolds to accelerate your development ramp. Here's an example. We're going to go through 3 of them. I want you to underwrite a lot of deals. And this is not a revolutionary concept either, but the sequencing and the depth is what has been missing from the coaching programs that I have been exposed to. They're all excellent, but here's where the rubber meets the road. And it was the difference for me. The first thing you need to focus on, you just need to make it your priority, and you can't get distracted by other noise. So you need to go learn how to underwrite some deals. That's your first milestone. Cool. Once you knock that out, and in a moment we'll go through very specifically how you would knock that out, you need to go learn how to analyze a market, and not just a market in a general sense. It's not just going to be oh, let me go look at Dallas. I like Dallas. Yeah, let's buy real estate in Dallas. It's not deep enough. You need to go look at the submarkets within Dallas. And so DFW is a big place. Go analyze enough deals to get there. Your network will always appreciate more time and attention. So the more focus that you can put on building relationships, authentic relationships, putting the time in to get to know people, man, that pays you back in unexpected ways, paying it forward whenever you can. But you need to be able to speak competently about what you're actually talking about. So that's why that's going to come third after those other steps. So last but not least, just go get some practice, right? So none of these are intended to be revolutionary. You've heard these before if you've ever taken most of the real estate coaching programs, particularly within the realm of multifamily. The next layer beneath this is definitely what has been missing and what made the difference for me. So here's the workshop. I want you to follow along. This is where we're going to actually forecast some growth milestones and go through one very specific exercise. So I promised to talk about tools, and this is just a very simple plug for a tool that I am a huge fan of. I use Google Calendar. A lot of people do. If you use another thing, I used to use Outlook many years ago. I just love Google Calendar these days. This is just a blank calendar I exported from it. I'm going to give a plug because we're going to use this blank July 2019 calendar for the exercise. I'm going to plug it further and say, here's like a little TMI about me and about my business. I use 4 different Google accounts and they all integrate with each other. That's the kind of stuff that you can do with Google for Work. That's probably more complex than most people want to do. I will be whittling that down to 3 soon. But when you have a lot of different facets of life that you're balancing, it is such a great tool. And you need these types of tools to be able to work and get the most out of your time. So step 1, when you forecast a milestone, I want to make sure that you're also tying that milestone to a date and it physically shows up on the calendar. We're going to show you that. Here's something that I think a lot of programs could benefit from, and I want to encourage you to really reflect on, which is this notion of work-life balance is, I probably shouldn't swear on here, so I'll just call it crap. I called it a sham on the slide. It doesn't exist. So we all know that. And if you're still struggling with that notion of having a clean slate when work stops and life starts, how's that going? The goal here is to get work-life integration. So family comes first for me. You do you. I would just encourage you to at least acknowledge the personal events that you're going to be scheduling out when we run this forecasting exercise. I want you to focus on the what for this stage, not the how. So tempting to go directly into the how. But in this next section, before we get to budgeting, that's where we're going to go in the how. I want you just to focus on the what. That's that milestone. So here we go. Milestone 1, underwriting skill. Now, those of you that are already experienced, you're going to be looking at this going, I already know how to underwrite. Cool. Just follow along for the principle. Not worried about that. You're still going to get value out of this. We want to go and build an underwriting skill. So set up that milestone, land on the number that you feel like is appropriate to actually get you to the point where you think you can underwrite deals competently. And here is July, looking at July 31st. That's the one we're going to try to go and say, we just picked a number that sounded right to us. 50 multifamily deals. That's when I want to be able to say I underwrote 50 multifamily deals by July 31st. That translates to, about what, 2 a day, 10 a week. Maybe if daily is too oppressive, it's too intense, too rigid, go for 10 deals a week. Cool. That's a milestone you can hit. Or can you? Is it more like, well, 10 a week sure sounds like a lot. Maybe you still have a day job. I'm sure many of you do. I do. If you still have a W-2 job or other obligations like a W-2, maybe you contract heavily. Maybe you have family obligations, personal obligations. Maybe you do a lot of volunteer work, whatever. You have something else that takes a substantial chunk of your week, call it 30, 40 hours of your week. So 10 hours a week, or 10 deals a week of underwriting, that's going to be a big time commitment. So maybe that milestone was too aggressive. Here's your two choices. So you can move that target date further out. Notice I just shifted that target date from the 31st over to the 3rd of August. So that's your first option. Second option, just reduce the number of deals. And so you can actually trim just the number of deals for the target. There's no shame in that. I think a lot of times I have found myself, and I've talked to other folks I've mentored, they beat themselves up for having to modify a goal. It's like they chiseled that goal in so deeply in their mind and their heart that they felt like they are somehow failing already. They haven't even started and they feel like they're failing. Oh man, you got to just let yourself off the hook. You haven't even finished setting the goals and forecasted the exact milestones yet. So just proceed. It's not a big deal. What matters is you keep going. And so 7 deals a week with our reduced target, 7 deals a week, that sounded a bit more manageable. So we can now say we did that first step. We set a date. Now is the interesting part. This is the part I feel like talking to a lot of mentees, they get hung up and it stops. The whole thing stops. We want to acknowledge personal life events and integrate it into this calendar. So here's a theoretical. You can see how exciting, maybe not exciting, my life is. We've got like a date night thrown in. We've got a couple of young kids' birthday parties. We have a conference. We have a family trip, a 3-day weekend, something like that. We have a couple of the in-laws staying with us. So we're going to cut that number of available days in July because we have to. We just went through the exercise of plugging in key life events into this calendar, and we realized we don't have as much time as we thought that we did. And now you're probably seeing why it's so important to plan this way, right? It definitely seems more generous if you leave the personal events off the calendar. You can't do it separately. That's why work-life balance becomes such a sham. This has to be integrated planning. And so we're reducing that total number of days by 6. 25 days, analyze 30 deals. What do you guys think? I think we can do it. And so we have our milestone, and now we're going to go make it real. This is literally what I do. It doesn't have to be exactly what you do. I strongly encourage you to, yes, please handwrite your milestones. Put them on a piece of paper. I like using Sharpie. There's something about that permanence that just feels good. But write it on a piece of paper. Put it in a prominent place. I literally put this in my bedroom, so I will have to look at this thing every day until it's done. And when it's done, I crumple it up, I throw it in the trash, and man, that feels good because I beat the milestone. And then I make another one. So take the time, write it down. There is literal science tied to a higher follow through from people that write their goals down, handwrite their goals down, than people who type them. I kid you not. Write your goals down. So now we get to do the real work. We get to go into the how. This is the part of the work where we just went and set that milestone above the water if you're looking at that iceberg theory. Now we have to go and do the hard work of the how, getting into the meat. So let's do that. Budgeting. So if you've joined the call in the meantime, some context. We're using this term of goal setting, goal setting, forecasting, budgeting, all these different terms, because managing your personal development like a business goes better and is more successful when you use the language of business. So in this context, we're not talking about a numbers exercise. What we're talking about is setting priorities and budgeting your time and budgeting your effort. You have finite energy, physical energy, emotional energy every week. You have to be very, very conscious of how you allocate that time and how you allocate that energy. And so let's get into it. Once again, I don't want anyone to miss the awesome image of Legos trying to make better processes and habits. It's just too funny. So I had to put it back in here again if anyone happened to dial in afterwards. Be open-minded. Think about your habits. That sacred cow of a habit that you just say, that's just how I work. You have a choice. Most of us do. If you choose to work a certain thing, a certain day of the certain week, you like to do a certain style of habit, pressure test it. Ask yourself, do you actually need to do things that way? Because I'm going to challenge you to go and try something different. So this is all about balance. Ultimately, you want to figure out, how do you go and integrate your work into your life, work on the highest yield things possible, and do that in a sustainable way? Because if you're doing it in a way that lets you sprint, and you're doing it for 1 week and then you're done because you're just so burnt out, it's not sustainable. You need to do this over a marathon. This is a year's commitment. You're talking about going and getting thousands of doors. This is a lifestyle. So how do you build a lifestyle? Your work needs to be prioritized thoughtfully. So when you're prioritizing, you are consciously saying one thing is more important than another. I think a lot of times people don't make that connection, as simple as that sounds. And please do not take this as patronizing. Like, the fact you pick a top priority is kicking other things to the bottom of the list, down the list. You're making a trade-off. So if you find yourself too busy to do something, that's because it's not important enough to you. That's all that means. The day I had to basically put away my Xbox many years ago when I had kids, well, that's the right priority. Right now, if you are prioritizing in such a way where you can't find the time to run these exercises, take an audit, look across the whole week. And what we're gonna do literally right now is exactly that. Ask yourself, what can hit the chopping block? Take the time to think, is this activity that I consider to be required for my life something that is truly required? Do I need to spend time on this? Or can I afford, at least for now, for this era, for this chapter of my life, can it drop off? Is that okay? Is it okay if it drops off? So we have this 25 days to hit that milestone of becoming an underwriting badass. Looking at the calendar for July, let's budget. Let's budget our time, budget our effort. If you don't work a W-2 job or do something like an equivalent, you probably got these things that are blocked off in the red. You probably got that kind of availability. It's a beautiful thing. Look at all that amazing time you have to actually crush a bunch of great underwrites on deals. So many of you on the call today may not have that time. I don't. So I have to be ruthless in my prioritization. You know, everyone's different. Everyone physiologically is different. I know how many hours of sleep on average I need per night. So I made a couple of assumptions here. Take them or leave them. I think that if you look at the W-2 employee's week, or someone who consults heavily, 30, 40 hours a week minimum, you've probably got nights during the work week. So that's why maybe you got 2 hours, maybe you got 3, maybe you are a superhuman and you were able to go longer than that. I cannot. I absolutely cannot do that over a sustained period of time. I might have 2 hours, maybe 3. So on the weekends, yeah, you got more. But let's just think about the week this way. Anytime that you're out of pocket and you are with your family, you're with your in-laws, or, you know, you're going to your kids' birthday parties. I'd like to just put it out there that I don't ever want to be distracted during that time. I want to be present. Otherwise, why are we all here? Yes, we got to build the business. Yes, you got to be responsive to your investors. Yes, you got to be available for people when they need your help. You have commitments you got to stay good on. But that said, be present with your family, be present with your kids. Otherwise, what the hell are we all doing here? So let's just put a number of underwrites to a certain cadence. Let's say we got one underwrite per weekday on that 2 to 3 hours. Some people are faster, way faster. I'm assuming the audience that I'm talking to here largely move at a little bit, maybe around or a little bit faster or slower than my speed. I am not the fastest underwriter. I am good at it, but I'm not that fast. I've seen people that are like whizzes and they can do it in 20 minutes, 10 minutes. That's just not me. I can do it really accurately. I just take a little more time. So you do you, but I'm putting some assumptions out there. Maybe you can crank out 4 per day on the weekend, meaning 8 per weekend. So there you have it. Call that nerdy if you want to. I call it effective. It's what I use. I am not taking a separate level here on this call that I actually do in reality, which I'm happy to talk about with anyone offline. If you want to follow up with me, I'm happy to like send you literal screenshots of how I schedule my time. I schedule literally every minute of every work week. And what that means is I even schedule time blocking when I have to work on specific things. And that's a proven way to be more effective. So I didn't go into a daily snapshot here. We don't have time, but reach out. I'm happy to provide examples of how I do that and the tools that I use to integrate within that approach. So the question now is, do you have the discipline and the open-mindedness to try these practices? If you've already got a flow, if you feel like you're actually crushing your goals, if you are overperforming, then more power to you. Don't change this for the sake of it. You said you've got a good thing going. But if you want more discipline in your execution, just try some new stuff, build some new habits. All right, so we're kind of getting near the end here. We got 2 more sections, a little different flavor this time. Hiring. And for those of you that are just joining, hiring means hiring a coach. Like you need someone to help you accelerate your performance. And so finding and vetting a coaching program, that's what we're talking about. And let's talk for a moment. Why would you hire a coach? I think it's an important question that a lot of people kind of just immediately have this reaction to. When I first heard it, I thought it was actually, pretty, I thought it was a concept that maybe applied to other people, but it didn't apply to me. And I now subscribe to 2 different coaching programs personally. I still do. I've tried a total of 4. And I can't tell you how thankful I am. It's fundamentally changed the trajectory of my business. And so if you're looking back at the timetable that we are all as humans, confined within, we've basically got, call it 80 years plus or minus. Our original plan, for our own business was to get to financial freedom in about 15 years. And I was like, well, can we go faster? Let's do a revised plan with a coach. Let's talk about this with a coach. Maybe we can go for 7. And realistically, I'm happy to report, at least for our own circumstances, it's ended up being significantly shorter than that. But I wanted to make sure that we at least hit on just a more generic example here. So let me see. Got a question coming in here. Cool. Yeah, and I got a question just asking about what coaching programs I'm involved in. I'm happy to kind of speak to that offline, but I'll follow up with you afterwards. It's a great question, James. Please keep them coming. All righty, so there are coaches for just about everything. You can get coaches for entrepreneurship, finance, accounting, bookkeeping, talent management, marketing, sales, business development, real estate, and every flavor and strategy and niche within real estate. There are absolutely more than I can list on this slide. So just please make sure that you take the time to think about what are the areas that you want to complement. So I recently published an article specifically on this topic. So I'm actually deriving some of the content for this next section from that article. Feel free to check it out. It's on the Forbes Real Estate Council. It was published maybe 2 or 3 months ago. So it's a quick review. Like, let's go through the landscape of REI coaching programs. So first and foremost, you've got thought leadership platforms. This is a type of leadership platform where you log in typically to a Facebook group. Oftentimes it's on a social media network. You're paying typically a monthly fee, and that fee can be anywhere from, if it's like a relatively new one and the person's up and coming, maybe it's as low as like $10. On the higher end, you're gonna get up to a couple $100. And so it just depends. I do currently subscribe to at least one of these groups. And I think that it's all about finding a coach or operator that you find you align with. And we'll come back to more in a moment as to how to vet that. But that's your thought leadership platforms. You log in from your computer. They're really easy and accessible from anywhere. They're like private Facebook groups, and you find them. I find them quite useful. You can invest in a private coach, one-on-one. Now, these are really the cream of the crop. They reflect that in their price. So when you pay for a one-on-one coach, you're getting a lot of face time, and you're getting face time from a person who charges a premium because their time is just highly valuable. This can go anywhere from $5,000 a year up to quite literally $100,000 a year. It really depends on who you're going to be working with. But just keep that in mind, that you will get an accountability partner and you will get a level of custom expertise that you cannot match anywhere else. But don't just do it expecting it to get the results for you. This comes down to you taking action. Small group coaching. So this format, and again, this is just a simplified explanation of how this works, but you're looking at just a representation of what a kind of like a small group coaching format has taken that I've been exposed to, which is, think of it as almost like a mastermind, but a little bit more focused in terms of the content the coach is delivering to you. You check in on a set cadence. You have availability to actually follow up with questions offline with people. You dial in for the occasional formal check-in. That's small group coaching. Maybe it's about $50 a month. Maybe it's up to about $200 a month. Maybe it's more, but that's usually the range you see. Large group coaching. So this is, I think this is actually a screenshot from a Zoom company meeting. I just wanted to find something that was fair game for showing an example of the size. There's large group coaching formats all over the place these days. This is a digital version of that representation. So the idea is you have a large group of people, they're all going in. It's not going to be as tailored. You will get a lot of motivation. You will get a lot of interaction amongst group members. One thing that's great about this format is that you can actually connect with like-minded people, and then the relationships built from there are rich and they're awesome, and they are really helpful as you build out your network. So I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of the large group coaching and masterminds and meetups. So if you have not been to a RIA meeting before, I really encourage it, at least just to go and get a sense for what they are and the value they can provide. There are real estate investor meetings in every state, in every city. You can find them everywhere. There's some locally here. There's like dozens in San Francisco or nearby, and Oakland. They're typically like you can go for free, but you will still find a very big spread in terms of quality difference. So I would just recommend that go in with an open mind, but also have a discerning eye. And because if you are feeling like it's a hard pitch to buy something or to just use that operator or that host's product and service, then you're maybe not in the right meetup. Because the ones in the modern sense, the ones in 2019 that are worth their salt, I think are the ones where you go and it's really about adding value for each other and for the attendees. And then if you happen to get into a business discussion as a result of that, great, then that is a good outcome. So here's a few ways to vet an REI coach. A practice that I have learned and I have applied for many years at this point is actually treating it like a reverse interview. So as a person who's interviewed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hired hundreds and hundreds of people, I've learned that you can go to another person just because you are hiring them or they are hiring you. You're interviewing both ways. It's really just about alignment. So write down the questions that you would like to get answers to that are really important to you. It's not just, hey, are you a coach? That wouldn't be a great question. How about, walk me through an example of how you've helped someone in the past. Like that's a question that would be really helpful that I would want to know an answer to if I'm interviewing a coach, a potential coach. So treat it like an interview. That's number 1 of 3. Number 2, I would absolutely require reference checks from actual coaching students. So if you're going to go hire a coach and you haven't actually talked to or ever interacted or even emailed with one of their successful students, not a good sign. Reference checks are super powerful. I mean, even when you're hiring for your own business, whether it's an employee of yours, in this context, we're talking about hiring a coach. But if you want to hire a coach and you can't find a single student that is willing to sing their praises, run. Please save yourself the time, save yourself the effort, save yourself the money. That's not a good start. Last but not least, match for style. I think every person has a different communication style. Every person has a different preference for how they want to work through debates, to like wrestle with a problem. And that's fine. There's a coach for everyone out there, I think, but don't jump in if that first phone call or set of phone calls that you have with the person feel awkward, or if you feel like it's just not leaving you energized. It's fine. I would just say, it was great getting to know you. Look forward to staying in touch. Let's keep the relationship going. I'm probably going to pass for right now. Thank you though. It's important. You're going to be spending some time with this person. You want to make sure that they actually fit your communication style. All right, we're in the home stretch. Section 5, accountability is critical. And so if I'm managing my personal growth like a business, I think it's really important that you actually are sitting down with a person who you trust, and who you trust so much that you'll let them actually give you critique. And that critique can actually be pretty direct. So let's go back to our big goal example earlier. The big goal example of hitting 1,000 units. Does someone out there know that's your goal? But then, do they actually know the milestone that you're going for at the time? Like if you're just starting this ramp and you're trying to hit that first scaffold, have you told this person who's your accountability partner, I'm going to go and underwrite these deals by July 31st of 2019? Because if you don't have a person sitting there besides yourself, like this really awkward stock photo board of directors, who's going to sit there and say, did you do it? We don't hold ourselves accountable very well. We need other people to help us do this. To help us achieve new levels of success, we need a buddy, and a buddy who cares enough about us to actually sit down and say, you know what? I think you can do better. It's a powerful thing to have an accountability partner like that. And so if you've set SMART goals, you've got an accountability partner who can come back and actually say stuff to you that is very direct, but also give you the praise and recognition when you've done it well. That's the kind of partnership that you're looking for. So last but not least, I would just say you will get so many people talking to you about what they think personal development is, what it means, what it should be. They'll typically say that it is, a hobby, it's a joke, it's really funny, it's really cute. No, that's nice, you've got that thing going on the side. Just ignore it. There's this really great moment that most of you, I think, if not all of you, will remember from the oh so nerdy movie, The Matrix, when Neo is about to go take a huge jump off of that skyscraper. And, Morpheus is sitting there going, you got to let it all go. You got to just let go of those notions of fear, doubt, and disbelief before you take a plunge off. And then Neo jumps and he hits the pavement hard. And that's why I love that scene in relation to personal development, because people are going to say, you can't make that jump. Everybody's going to say that. And then you will. Even if you fall on the first one, you keep going, you will. So it's just about making sure that you take the time and you're committed to yourself to reaffirm it's the right thing for you to do, and just ignore the noise. So in closing, thank you so much for all the time and attention. I appreciate every one of you for joining and just listening to my rants. Again, I'm from Madison Investing, co-founder, along with Jennifer Morimoto. We help people build passive income through commercial syndications, and we'd be happy to talk to you. So reach out anytime. You can reach us at madisoninvesting.co. My email is spencer@madisoninvesting.co. I'm always happy to connect and learn with other smart people who are just passionate talking about entrepreneurship and real estate. So that is all I have got for today. Thank you so much.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Spencer. And we are going to open this up now for some questions and answers. So I know you went into a lot of great detail there. Really appreciate that a lot. So I do have one question that is already in here right now from George, and he's asking, well, how do you find and vet a coach?
Yeah, man, good question. I think, frankly, a summit like this is a really good start. That is one of the resources you can go with, George. But beyond that, if you wanted to reach out to me afterwards, I'm happy to provide you even just like an actual list. Because if you go out to a couple of the multifamily focused groups or real estate investing groups that are out there, I mean, frankly, I also think Dan runs a great group I think that you're going to find recommendations on there too. But please feel free just to email me. I'm happy to give you some recommendations from my own experiences, but also just names of folks who I didn't end up going with. I interviewed about maybe eight coaches when I first started looking for a coach. And I ended up only going with two at the time. So yeah, those would be a couple of things that come to mind for me.
So if you have any questions for Spencer, please go ahead and put them into the Q&A box, since we can have this opportunity to be able to ask him some questions here live. And Spencer, what is your email again, so I can put it in the comments here, so in case somebody wants to email you, they can.
Yeah, Spencer@MadisonInvesting.co. Reach out.
So not .com, but .co.
Yep. You got it.
All right. So I went ahead and put that in there so everybody can see the email there, Spencer@MadisonInvesting.co. And it doesn't look like there's any questions in here right now. There may be somebody typing here a little bit, here and there. So I don't know. Let's see. Nope. So if you have any questions for Spencer, you can certainly do that. Usually when there's no questions at the end, Spencer, it means you covered it in a lot of detail and they just didn't create any questions. So that's always a good thing, right?
Hopefully.
Well, here's one.
Cool.
What is the best personal development book that you read and implemented the strategies?
Oof. Oh my gosh. That is a tough one. I can't ignore this. It's just too good. I got to plug Joe Fairless's book. I thought that Joe Fairless's book was really good. Oh, Dan's got a copy.
This one?
That's the one. There you go. The Best Ever Apartment book. That book, the reason I like it so much is it is the furthest thing from fluff. And it is just like Joe put in the work. And it's full of not only syndication and apartment focused subject matter, it also hits on like these practices, not it's going to turn into a Joe Fairless content talk. But I think it hits on things such as when you're goal setting, you want to have a positive thing, think about, visualize the outcome, but also visualize what happens if you don't. That's always resonated with me. You should think about, what if you have to go back to your family and say, I didn't do it? What is that going to feel like? So I would actually say that book is definitely still on my nightstand, already went through it. But it synthesizes a bunch of other content that is found in pieces from other things. So got to be there.
And the next question here is, what would you say are the key steps in underwriting or practicing underwriting?
Yeah, this is just my style. I think it's worth investing in a calculator. So there's a lot.
What's that?
A calculator. Thank you, Dan. So there are really well-built Excel calculators for Microsoft Excel. They already exist. You don't need to go out and actually just create from scratch a blank slate underwriting sheet. So I think there's a couple other examples I can actually share with you offline. If you want to email me, I'm more than happy to send you some recommendations on where to find those. I literally am comfortable paying for these calculators. I think they're a great investment because that gives you a framework. You don't have to go and sit there and research, oh, do I put down, do I need to put sources and uses? Maybe I shouldn't. Do I need to put down these materials? How do I put net operating income? Where do I position it? All of those things, they're there for you by people who are experts. And so I think that investing in a calculator, an underwriting deal calculator, is really quite excellent. And it just leapfrogs your progress.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, there's no further questions here, Spencer. I really do appreciate all of your information and content that you provided. I know there's already been some great comments here on the chat box about it. Looking forward to continuing to follow you. And thank you so much for providing the value you did today.
Great catching up, Dan. Looking forward to checking out some of the other sessions. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. All right. So that concludes